So for this project, it's going to be slightly less of a how-to. Well, okay, let me phrase that. It's not really doing this because I'm just doing it to make it. I actually want a new forge that can make wider things like battle axes and just, wider things. Because my forge is long and narrow, meant for making swords. But I want something I want to make, axes or, small shovels. So I decided I'm going to make one for myself. And after several months of gathering parts, a little bit of experimentation, I finally, probably, sort of possibly, maybe, have it figured out. So, I'm going to start by showing you how to make that. That should be glued on. Anyway, this is my forge burner. I'm going to do a dual forge burner, so that's why I already have one made. I made this one basically just to show that or not really show, but to figure out how to do it and make sure I was doing it right before I tried to make a video and ended up having to scrap the whole thing. Basically, all of this is hardware store parts, and I think the only thing I actually had the special order for this project, at least as of right now, is the ceramic wool, I think is what it's called. It's basically like it looks like fiberglass, but it's actually a ceramic stuff used for insulating things. I had to order that offline, really was expensive. I also got fire bricks, but you can usually find those at a lot of different places, so you don't really especially order those. Although the only reason this is kind of a little more difficult for how-to is because this piece here needs to be flared, and as you can see, I forged that. So I'm not certain how to make this without at least doing some blacksmithing. But I've seen a few different ways online, and I'm sure a bit of experimentation could probably easily do it, but that's how I did it. Anyway, I'm going to get started by basically showing how I made this piece here, and then I'll show the rest. To make the, the valve, I guess, basically, the main thing you want is, well, basically a little hole to spray the propane in through the tube. And one of the main things I found that's really good are MIG tip welders, or not MIG tip welders, tips for MIG welders, that makes a little more sense, that are 0.35 inches. These are just ones I found at a local hardware store. Really, you could also drill these yourself, but these are pre-made. That's a small hole, so it's a lot easier. But then basically you have to find a way to attach that to, well, your propane source, basically. And there's a few different ways to do it. I've actually seen someone literally take a piece of pipe, fill it with weld, thread it, and just thread one of those into it. But that seems like a lot of work. And I also want to be able to shut these off, which is why I have this ball valve, 1/4 inch. I buy everything in 1/4 inch just so it stays simple. And then I was trying to find, for the longest time, something I can thread those into. That was actually the hardest thing to find. I could find different things online that said, you need this or that, or, all these things that would work. But the hardest part is actually finding them. I didn't want to special order anything, because sometimes I do that and it still doesn't work. So then I found these, just at a hardware store. At first I didn't realize what it is, because it's labeled as a plunger valve. Which, okay, whatever. But it's just slightly too small for threading it, so I'll have to drill it out, which is kind of what I figured I had to do anyway. I later realized these are actually the quick connects for air compressors. So, if you go to a hardware store, quick connects for air compressors are fine, because I have to cut this part off anyway, and most of them don't have that. So basically, what I have for my valve is this, screwed onto there, with one of those screwed into the end of this, and then this will attach to one of these, what are these called? I don't know, these barbed things that'll attach to rubber hose, which will then, that rubber hose will actually attach to this T here, which I'll use to attach the two together. I'm doing the ball valve just in case I want to have one going and one, off. But what I'm going to start with, after I get done rambling here, is cut this end off and then drill it out so I can tap it. I think I forgot to say, but you need like a 13/64, I believe, drill bit for drilling out your hole, which for some reason these are kind of a pain to drill. I don't know why. But then you want to take a 6mm tap to, well, thread that, and that will fit onto your MIG tips. So as it turns out, the thing was drilled in slightly sideways. Oh well. When I go to attach this, I'll just, instead of attaching onto this, I'll just attach it onto here. So that way it blows, straight down, which is what you want. So anyway, now I just have to attach the rest of the pieces. There we go, all made. Now we just have to make our main body and connect the two. Man, I really need to clean up in here. Now that we have our, whatever you want to call this piece made, this is kind of a one part. I kind of describe this as two parts when telling people about it. Fun fact, trying to describe this for me is really hard to do without actually showing it. I tried to describe to my cousin a couple weeks ago what I was making, and I don't think I made a lot of sense trying to say it, but once you show a picture of it, everything all of a sudden makes sense. Anyway, that's enough rambling. So this little piece here is a 1/4 inch, and since I didn't manage to get it on quite straight like my last one, I'm just gonna drill that part in to this is just a little piece of steel here. I use this to hold it in place, so that way I can just weld that on top of the, was it the adapter that I use? Steel pipe. I cut this down a little bit, which is kind of hard to do because it puts a hole in it, but I managed to get it cleared out. Or doesn't put a hole, it clogs up the hole, but I managed to get it cleared out. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and drill my 1/4 inch hole into this, and then I'm going to make my flared piece at the bottom, and basically then assemble it. Okay, so to form the flare at the end, which helps create suction through this, I do have to apologize because this requires some forging, which I already have it forged, so it's not an issue. Again, there's probably other ways you can figure out how to do this, but again, blacksmithing is just kind of the way I know how to do it, so that's what I'm going to do. And I think mentioned this is more of a me showing you how I'm doing it, as opposed to actually more of a tutorial. I mean, it's a tutorial, but I'm going to do this anyway, so I'm just filming it. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flare this out to where it fits like the other one. I do believe you want it to be like 1.5 inches. I'll correct that after it's done if it's not correct. But basically all I do is I just heat this up in the forge, go to the horn of the anvil, hammer it out to where it just kind of flares. It's pretty simple. Okay, now that I have that piece made, I have my the flared end, made, just cooling on the anvil at the moment. I'm going to take that part, weld it onto here to where it's centered and goes straight down. Just thread it onto there, then take the cone, or that flared part, not really a cone, weld it onto the end of here. This is all just 1/4 inch black iron pipe, by the way. And then gonna hook up the propane to this and give it a quick test. So, yeah, I think I'm running out of propane a little bit in my tank, but it seems to work about like I want it to. So now I'm just going to take some epoxy putty and kind of fix that in place. I used some JB Weld in my last one. It didn't work so well, so I'm going to try some epoxy putty. So worst case scenario, if it moves a little bit or it doesn't stick to one of them, the putty's going to keep it in place. So once that's done, I'm of course going to take this off since it's not just going to be attached to one source. But I'm going to take this apart and, I have to start making the main body. Okay, so now that my burners are made, now it's time to start working on the main body. So for mine, I got this. Now I'm going to say, don't use propane tanks. Cutting into these can be very dangerous because, again, flammable gas, sparks. This one, however, is very old. The valve on it, they actually don't make anymore and won't attach to anything. So it was, it's been sitting empty for a long time. I ended up having to hammer it off, and then it sat open for probably 6 months to a year before I ever got to it. I've tested it out. It's completely empty. There's nothing in it. So I know this is safe, but just as a general, I would recommend using something else because this could potentially be very dangerous. Now, my basic plan is I'm going to cut probably the bottom of it off and then use that as my door, have a hinge, put my 2 burners on top, make some at the bottom to make sure it doesn't roll around. I have some insulation to put on it and some fire bricks to put on the bottom. And yeah, just go from there, I guess. Okay, that actually was easier than I thought it was going to be. But looking at it now, 2 burners might be a bit much. But then again, maybe not. For what I want, again, I want wider things. So, these will be on top. So now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to size about where I want these. Then I'm going to take, I'm just going to kind of square them out so I can cut them. Then I'm going to take a piece of steel pipe, like I think, what is it, 2.5 or 1.5 inch steel pipe. It should be more than big enough for this to fit through. Gonna weld those onto the top, or weld those onto it over the holes. Then put a nut or bolts in the side of it so I can hold this in place. Then of course I have my insulation and the fire bricks, some sort of hinge for that. I might cut up in the back, but I don't know if that's really gonna be necessary. I'm not gonna do it unless it is. And hopefully this will be a lot better than I'm thinking it's going to be, but still a very early stage of the project, so it just looks a little weird to me. Okay, now that I have the main part cut out and, gonna start making the mounts for it. Basically, this is 1.25, 1.25, I think it's 1.5 steel pipe, which is perfect size. I drilled holes in the side and just threaded them, and now I'm gonna go do the same with this one. Okay, so this looks pretty rough, but I have a hinge on it now. I just took a hinge, chopped it down, welded it on, reinforced it a little bit. So now I need to cut the insulation out, which that'll be interesting. It's basically just a ceramic fiber, well, I don't know what it's actually called. But need to cut that out, cut out holes for the burners to go in. And I don't know if I need to cut a window into this. I don't plan on it, but if I end up needing to, I will. I might end up anyway. But then once I get that done, it should be functional. I hope. I really hope. Well, it's insulated and mostly done. I guess I kind of need to make a small stand for it and figure out some way to hold that in place. I might just put a little bit of JB Weld on it. I don't know yet. Still haven't cut the window in if I'm gonna do that, but again, don't know if I'm gonna do that. But, you know, I guess the thumbnail will have it in there if it doesn't, or if I actually do use it. So basically all I have left to do is put the burners on, make sure all they're attached to propane, and should be good. I found out this stuff cuts pretty easily with the box cutter. I just take a straight edge, you can just dig the box cutter in and, you know, cut it. I'd recommend something a little bigger than the one I was using, like one of those that has the extendable blades, but I don't have one of those in my shop. I do have one, but just not in my shop. Anyway, so I'm just gonna put the burners in this and hook everything up and we'll give it a test. Although, you guys won't notice, it'll probably be the next clip, but that won't be until tomorrow for me because it's getting late and I'm tired. Okay, now that I have this, well, mostly complete, well, this is going to be the end of the video, I guess, beyond probably a little, you know, short clip at the end. But I do plan on making improvements to this in the future. I might, you know, remove all the paint and rust from it and put a coat of enamel on it. I want to put some sort of latch system on here so that way it, you know, closes and stays closed instead of having stuff blow out the sides you probably saw. I'll probably cut this to where it goes like the full length of here just so it's a little wider. But this is more of just, yeah, this is kind of a start. Again, this was more of the video for showing how I made this as opposed to just a straight up tutorial. I mean, I present it as a tutorial, but you know, it still is more just I was building this, hey, let's film it, which a lot of my stuff kind of is. I will also say that at least for something like this, 2 burners is a bit overkill. I ended up shutting one off and was using it and it seemed to work pretty well. That's also why I put these ball valves on, just so if I want to, I can have both going, shut one off, and just have one going. My main one is set up that way too. You can see the ball valves on as well. I usually, unless I'm heat treating, only use the first one and don't really use the rest of them because it wastes propane. And, well, I'm not gonna have them all burning, it's not necessary. But for this, again, it's mainly meant for like heat treating larger things. It's not very deep, as you can see. So it's not like I can make massive things. I mean, here's a sledgehammer. So this is a comparison. Like I said, it's not very deep. I think 9 inches is what I measured it at. I'll probably add some more fire bricks in it too. I just need to get more. They're not really available at the moment because it's, you know, July, at least as of filming this. It'll probably still be July when you're seeing this, or at least uploading it, but again, it might not be. And who knows when you're watching this. But anyway, dates aside, I will probably be making improvements to this. And the main thing I definitely want to know is to know that I could actually make the burners. That's kind of the hard part. This is just the container. These are actually pretty simple to make once I figured out what I'm doing. And now I can basically make a bunch of them and I can make other things. I'd like to make another long one, but a really long one, longer than that. So I can make like long swords or, you know, like a Zweihander or something like that. I think that'd be cool. You know,
or just other things. It's just kind of a, you know, something else I can say I can do. I also was kind of joking around. It'd be kind of interesting to make some sort of like gauntlet that I can strap on those burners on like the back of my arm, so I can, you know, have like a wrist-mounted sort of flamethrower. I kind of messed around with it too earlier. If you've seen, I made a flamethrower using propane, and it just, you know, shot out using a just a regular valve. But I think if I were to attach something like this to the end of it and have that actually shooting through one of these and some sort of electric ignition, I think this would probably work a lot better if I used one of these as opposed to the setup I had there. So, you know, just kind of something to play around with. Don't do that, by the way. That whole gauntlet thing I was talking about, even if I do it, don't take that idea and actually do that. That is extremely dangerous. These things burn very hot and put out a lot of flame. You know, you could easily get hurt. So don't actually do that. Anyway, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned. If you have any suggestions on how to improve this beyond using something better for that, let me know. I'm always willing to learn more, you know, if I can, because, you know, if you don't learn and improve, you're just kind of standing still in life, and I don't like that. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments down below, and hope to see you in the next video.